This passage contains three distinct musical materials: widely spaced statements of the trichord type 026, a chromatic melody within a very narrow compass of a whole tone, and a double canon in inversion in the style of J.S. Bach. Despite their obvious contrast, these three types of music have subtle affinities and suggest the possibility of a reconciliation toward which the work as a whole strives. Let's consider first the 026 strand. Within this strand, the aggregate of all 12 notes is presented here as a series partitioned into four discrete forms of 026. The first trichord, E flat A G, is related by T5 to the second trichord, A flat C D. Similarly, the third trichord, F D flat B, is related by T5 to the fourth trichord, B flat E F sharp. The middle two trichords are related at I1 in order, as are the first and last. The four trichords together use all 12 notes. Is there any hint of Bach's musical signature, the notes B flat A, C, B, in this network of 026? One can imagine the 026 network as an array, with set class 026 in the columns and set class 0123 in the rows. One of the rows of the array, E flat D, D flat E, is isolated in register. The other two rows are dispersed across the registers. One of those rows contains a rotation of B flat A, C, B, starting on A. In this way, we get a slight hint of the Bach cipher. The reference is somewhat buried here, but becomes explicit later in the piece. So we're imagining a progression of four three-note chords, each of which is a 026. E flat G A, A flat C D, B D flat F, and E F sharp B flat. In this progression, each of the lines is a 0, 1, 2, 3, the set type of the Bach cipher. E flat D, D flat E A, C, B, B flat, Bach's musical signature, rotated to start on A, and G, A flat, F, F sharp. The second strand, the chromatic melody, contains only three different pitches, G, A flat, and A, and presents them mostly in a fixed order as a recurring four-note series, A, G, A flat, G. Initially, an alternation of G and A flat. Then A, G, A flat, G 5 times. This chromatic melody bears an intimate relationship to the 026 network. Specifically, it fills in and animates the whole tone GA within the first 026. Its central tone, A flat, is reinforced and sustained in the second violin and viola, then becomes the first note of the second 026. Here's the GA whole tone within the first 026. That gap is filled in with a trilled A flat in viola and second violin. Then the same space is filled again and again by the chromatic melody and its four-note series, A, G, A flat, G. That central A flat is reinforced one more time as the first note of the second 026. The four notes heard in the first four measures of the passage, E flat G A as the first 026 and G A flat A as the chromatic melody, come together to form a member of set class 0126, E flat G A flat A. Other members of the same set class can be heard in the interstices of the 026 network. Within the four 026s, each whole tone is filled in chromatically by a nearby note, creating a network of 0126 that is isographic with the network of 026. Here are the four forms of 0126. E flat G, A flat A, A flat C, D flat D, B, C, D flat F, and E, F, F sharp, B flat. The T and I that connect them are the same as the T and I that connect the 026s, as we discussed a moment ago. The third strand is a double canon in inversion. The four voices enter at a distance of 2 quarter notes. The lower canon, between cello and viola, is at the octave. The upper canon, which is the strict pitch inversion of the lower one, is at the unison between the two violins. The cello starts like this. It is answered 2 beats later by the viola, an octave higher. The second violin then enters with the same tune in inversion. It is answered 2 beats later by the first violin, starting on the same pitch. The leading canonic voice in the cello is taken almost literally from Bach's Art of the Fugue. This is the moment in that titanic work when the BACH subject is first introduced and combined with the original subject. These also might have been the final measures Bach composed before his death. Gubaidulina extracts the counter subject as a melody for the cello, transposing it up a step to E minor. In a Bach-like gesture, but without much concern for the resulting counterpoint, the viola imitates the cello in canon at the octave. This duet is full of dissonances that violate the norms of tonal counterpoint. The canon at the unison and the two violins similarly violates the norms of tonal counterpoint with its insistent unresolved dissonances. The resulting four-voice passage evokes Bach in both the material, the counter subject from the Art of the Fugue, and its imitative contrapuntal treatment. But the harmonic effect is highly dissonant and atonal, a chromatic wash in which all 12 pitch classes, excepting only C, are present. While the lower canon conveys an odd sort of E minor, the upper canon conveys mostly A major harmony as 5 of D minor. These two canons are related by inversion around the E they share. Within this scheme, the E minor triad outlined in the lower duet is related by inversion to the A major triad outlined in the upper duet. One can think of the relations among the four canonic tunes in very much the same way we thought of the relationship between the 026 and the 0126 within their networks. And within the double canon, a network of 013 trichords shapes the structure in ways that also resonate with the 026, 0126, and instrumental networks. With its inversional symmetry and network formation, the Bach-like material thus shares a deep affinity with the earlier 026-based material. The three basic sorts of musical material in this work, the 026 network, the chromatic melody, and the quotations and paraphrases from J.S. Bach, come together in the brief chorale that concludes the work. The first violin gives a straightforward presentation of the BACH cipher, B flat A, C, B. The Bach cipher is accompanied in parallel motion 4 semitones lower in the second violin. And it's also accompanied by an ascending chromatic line in the viola. Each of the upper strings thus projects a form of the chromatic tetrachord 0, 1, 2, 3. The chords formed between the upper three parts are all major or minor triads: G flat major, D minor, A flat major, and E minor. These triads pair into complementary hexatonic collections, which together form the aggregate of all 12 tones. The upper three parts can thus be thought of in virtually the same way we thought of the 026 network at the beginning of the piece: an array with 0, 1, 2, 3 in the rows, and, in this case, 0, 3, 7 rather than 0, 2, 6 in the columns. And what of the cello part, slightly misaligned beneath the homorhythmic upper parts? It refers directly back to the 026 strand with which the work began: E flat, G, A. The first three notes of the piece. A flat is adjoined to this trichord, creating 0, 1, 2, 6. Its concluding A flat dissonates the final E minor triad, just as its previous notes dissonate the other triads: G flat major triad with added G natural, D minor with added E flat, A flat major with added A natural, and E minor with added A flat. The concluding chorale thus represents a moment of historical and stylistic reconciliation between the 026 network, the chromatic melody, and the direct and indirect references to the art of the fugue, and between Bach and Gubaidulina.